The word doctor has many different meanings around the world, and most definitions of the term stem from the same origin. The term doctor comes from the Latin docere, and the first recorded use of docere was by Cicero in the year 55 BC to describe the ideal speaker and imagine him as a moral guidance of the state. He summarized that to teach means to provide truth through rational argument and statement of facts, and this builds the basis of the term doctor, which just means teacher in Latin. To be a teacher in this sense, one has to provide their reasoning for their argument as well as clearly define the facts regarding the matter. This is seen in the earliest use of the word doctor, which according to Merriam-Webster is the 14th century. These doctors were not medical healers we think of today, instead being renowned theologians, as each doctor had to be approved by the Roman Catholic Church, shown by a papal seal. This seal signified the doctor's knowledge and understanding of the doctrine of the Church, as well as the approval of the Pope to teach this doctrine to others. Only a select few were ever given this right in the Church's history. But before the Church adopted the title, many universities began awarding a quote-unquote license to teach to accomplished scholars starting in the early 12th century. These licenses held more esteem than a bachelor's degree, but they were eventually phased out and replaced with the doctorate. The first doctorates were awarded in Paris in the late 12th century, and the earliest form of the modern doctorate was the Doctor of Philosophy, or PhD. Originally, the PhD was only awarded to those who had a long and prosperous career in the fields of law, medicine, theology, or philosophy. Philosophy in this sense just means the pursuit of knowledge rather than the entire field of philosophy as we know it today. Within just a few decades, this would be expanded to include all students who had completed the doctorate program. Those who were awarded a PhD were granted the privilege to teach others within their field of studies, and only those PhDs who had reached middle age were ever given the title of doctor, which indicated a life dedicated to learning, knowledge, and the spread of knowledge. This tradition kept in line with the word's Latin root being teacher. Today, when we think of doctors, the first thing we think of is someone you go to see when you're sick or dying. But the title of doctor was not applied to medical practitioners until around the 17th century, when it first began being used in literary works. The story goes that in the 18th century, medical practitioners were jealous of the respect and notoriety shown to PhD recipients, and in an attempt to rectify this perceived slight, medical schools began calling their graduates doctors. Their argument was that due to the bachelor's being completed prior to medical school, that they had completed the necessary studies in order to be called doctors. In one of history's ironic twists of fate, regular lay people like me and you took to this lie like bees to honey. This is the reason that medical practitioners are widely referred to as doctors, despite the fact that historically and academically speaking, they're just not. Regardless, as more fields of study grew and gained prominence in the academic community, universities needed a way to distinguish the great scholars from the average students. As such, the doctorate was expanded beyond the original fields of law, medicine, and theology to be used in many more fields of study. The expansion of the doctorate, along with universities appearing across Europe as well as European influence spreading around the world, the term doctor began to develop new meaning as it reached new places. Let's start with the title's birthplace in Europe. Here we see the title mainly used to refer to a holder of a doctorate such as a PhD, with the term doctor being distinct from medical practitioners. Moving just a little ways south, in Italy we see the title holding to its historic roots even today. We see doctor become dottora, with the title being bestowed upon those who have completed a 3-year first degree called a laurea. Those who have studied but not yet completed this degree are still referred to as dottore. Originally, the only people qualified to earn this title were those who had completed a doctorate, and this is due to the University of Bologna being the first university of Western civilization. The only degree awarded by the university was a doctorate of philosophy, and so as more universities across Italy opened their doors, they followed the example set by Bologna. Because of this, until the 20th century, the only degree obtainable within Italy was a doctorate, with recipients being referred to as a dottore/dottoressa. But with the widespread use of the PhD around the world in the 20th century, the country was forced to adopt new meanings to allow for the growing number of advanced degrees, with those who obtained a master's degree equivalent going by dottore magistrale, and anyone receiving a research doctorate being given the title dottorato di ricerca. In Austria, the title doctor is turned to doctor and is given to holders of research degrees. A physician or dentist can still obtain the title, but only if they've completed a postgraduate research doctoral degree. Moving on to Germany, we see doctor used similarly, applying only to PhD recipients, although common use among ordinary citizens still refers to all physicians by the title, albeit incorrectly. In France, docteur becomes docteur, and we see the title used for physicians as well as those who have completed research doctorates, although medical professionals do not receive doctorates, instead receiving a state diploma of Doctor of Medicine. Here, the use of docteur by a non-medical professional requires the use of specialization within formal regards, such as Michael, Doctor of Mathematics, instead of just Dr. Mike. Going across the channel to the UK, we see the title doctor being used by any recipient of a doctoral degree, as well as any dentist, doctor, veterinarian, and so on without any formal restrictions. This is because in the United Kingdom, the title doctor is a professional one rather than an academic one, as we've seen in other European nations. Ireland, having been unfairly bullied into doing whatever England says for hundreds of years, follows the UK with its use of the title, with one notable exception. That one exception being Catholic bishops, who are also regarded as doctors. This isn't super surprising considering, well, it's Ireland, a very religious country, and that the use of the title doctor was a religious title bestowed on theologians in the 14th century. So it just kind of makes sense that Ireland would still allow them to continue this tradition. Moving into Northern Europe, we'll see that the Nordic countries take the title a little bit differently. The title turns from doctor to nothing, because up here the title doctor is simply not used in common speech, and it's really only applied where it's explicitly relevant, such as if a nurse is referring you to a specialist, or if you were asked to present on a relevant topic. Even in the latter case, the title doctor still wouldn't normally be used, as they would instead say the name followed by holder of a PhD in philosophy or whatever field the doctorate was in. In the Nordic countries like Sweden and Norway, for example, the title isn't ever really applied as a naming factor the way it is around the rest of the world. And this is pretty unique, as around the rest of the world, the title is applied in some way or another, whether it's through the traditional doctor or if it's a term derived without European influence. Either way, the title is used to distinguish an accomplished scholar from regular lay people like me and you. But in the Nordic region, that's just simply not the case. Alright, we're going to leave the Europas behind to travel over to Asia, where our first stop is going to be in India for contextual reasons rather than geographical ones, because, this isn't even the first Asian country we went past leaving Europe, but coming to India, we see things get a little confusing, because the use of government-granted titles is outlawed in the Indian Constitution as a measure to ensure equality. Article 18 of the Indian Constitution prohibits hereditary titles used to convey nobility. Noble titles like the ones the British established in order to create a separate aristocrat class in order to divide the people. Although there are a few exceptions in which the government is allowed to bestow titles to citizens and non-citizens. One of these was the National Awards, which used to bestow pseudo-titles upon people in the country. The Supreme Court of India decided that they were allowed to continue the National Awards, with the contingency that the awards were not titles. As such, they were prohibited upon threat of revocation to be used as prefixes or suffixes to the name of any awardee. So even these mean the use of titles like doctor are out, right? Well, no, because military and academic titles are the other major exception to this rule. The government is allowed to bestow titles upon accomplished scholars and military personnel. The title of doctor is allowed to be bestowed upon accomplished scholars and medical practitioners, usually PhD recipients, as the state sees fit, and it's used just like around the world as a means of distinguishing exceptional individuals who have worked hard and achieved success academically. So basically, a doctor in India is a recognized scholar who was not limited to, but includes state-appointed doctors in the medical field. The title is still awarded to people who complete a doctorate program and used in front of the name when addressing someone like it is in other countries, but the title is purely academic rather than official, unless the government chooses to make it official. Wow, okay, that was a lot. I didn't realize when I started on India how much there was because Wikipedia lied, and upon looking deeper there was a lot more than I thought there would be, but staying in Asia, we're going to move to Thailand, where the Royal Institute of Thailand does not recognize the title doctor. As such, its use is forbidden within formal Thai language and documentation. The Royal Institute does recognize academic titles like professor, associate professor, and others, but not the title doctor. Therefore, in the Court of Justice, the mention of the title doctor is forbidden by lack of recognition rather than the word itself being chosen to be banned. To contrast this, the use of titles in Thailand is very important, and it would be considered outright rude to not use someone's formal title before their name. This goes for doctors as well. Although the title can't be used officially, it's still used within the formal language as a sign of respect to any PhD recipient or medical practitioner. Just like in India, the title doesn't even need to hold an official status to be used as a sign of respect for someone who worked hard in a field of study in order to better humanity as a whole. Quick aside, I know I've done an amazing job with pronunciation so far in this video, but I honestly don't know how long I can keep up even attempting some of these words, but I'm going to try to make it around the world, so please forgive me if I butcher a language like I did with Latin. Taking it easy with Hong Kong, the use of the title here stays true to its European roots, with most physicians being assigned the title doctor so long as they have achieved a bachelor's degree in medicine or surgery, but not for doctorate recipients. The same goes for the Philippines, which follows Spanish traditional naming standards with the use of gender-specific terms. Keeping with those Spanish roots, doctor, dr, is the masculine, while doctora, dra, is the feminine. The title is bestowed upon anyone with a doctorate or if someone is a graduated medical doctor. The same cannot be said for mainland China, where the prefix doctor is added before someone's name in English so long as they have received a doctorate in some field or are a medical doctor. That only applies to English, though. It's different when using Chinese, as the title is split with each doctor being referred to differently depending on which type of doctor they are. Medical doctors are referred to as Yi Shen, while academic doctors are referred to as Bo Shi, and veterinarians are referred to as Shou Yi. In Pakistan and Sri Lanka, we see the title assigned to physicians, including dentists and veterinarian doctors, as well as PhD holders. In Sri Lanka, when using native Sinhalese, a physician is addressed as Vaindya or Dostara, while a PhD holder is referred to as Acharya. Now, I know this isn't a part of Asia, but it's right next to it, so we're going to take a quick stop in Australia, where just like Thailand, we see the title similarly not recognized at any centralized level, although in Australia it's only advised against rather than being outright illegal in formal use like with Thailand. The Medical Board of Australia just advises anyone using the title doctor to also clearly state their profession in order to avoid any confusion, rather than just outright refusing to acknowledge the title's existence. We're going to make another quick stop, this time in Africa, because here we'll see a wide array of uses. First off, we'll start in Nigeria, where the title is used as an academic one officially, with only PhD recipients being given this title in an official capacity. This is in line with the history of the title, but once again the title is used by regular civilians to describe medical practitioners. The title carries no actual weight behind it like it does in other countries, but it's still an honorific given to MDs as a sign of respect, albeit incorrectly. Moving on to Kenya, we see the title is used without any formal regards to what someone actually is. Instead of calling all PhD recipients as well as medical practitioners doctor, we see the title applied to a variety of different fields. Pharmacists, medical practitioners, herbal healers, PhD recipients, lawyers, and many others have only completed a bachelor's equivalent yet still use the title of doctor in a professional setting as though they've completed a full research degree. And this is the case for many countries in Africa. The use of the title is largely dependent on the individual who's claiming to be a doctor. In many small towns or villages, there isn't an easy way to vet if this person is actually a medical practitioner or just a PhD recipient or just some guy who wanted to be called a doctor that day. In a lot of African countries, the term doctor has the common meaning of medical healer regardless of that person's qualifications or their education. Now, this isn't the rule. As we'll see in Egypt, here the use of the title doctor keeps in line with its European roots. In order to receive a doctorate, one must complete a master's degree, then write and defend a thesis. Upon completion of this, they receive their doctorate and the title of doctor. To go along with this, medical doctors are also given the title regardless if they've completed a postgraduate research degree or not. This is the exact same path and requirements that are used around the globe, and that's not going to change as we move away from Africa and into another continent, or continents depending on your definition, in the Americas. Going a little north to Canada, we see the title applied to PhD recipients as well as a number of medical professionals. Ontario is specifically strict on the matter, only permitting physicians, dentists, psychologists, optometrists, chiropractors, social workers, and anything else to use the title by law. Moving inward to the county of Quebec, we see the French influence with the usage of docteur. As such, docteur applies to veterinarians, dentists, and then physicians in that order. Recipients of a doctoral degree must use their full title following their name. Going a little south to the US, we see doctor used by medical professionals regardless if they hold a doctorate or not, as well as being given to those holding a PhD. The title was originally also given to lawyers, as a law degree is a professional doctorate, but this fell out of practice in recent decades, although some lawyers still use the title doctor in professional situations. Moving down to South America, we'll start in Colombia, where the title doctor or doctora is applied to anyone with a PhD, as well as lawyers and medical doctors. The major exception to this is in the third largest city in Colombia, Cali, where the mayor outlawed the use of titles like doctor and others within the city in an attempt to eliminate the endemic mark of snobbery that went along with expecting to be called a doctor, as he put it. This is a departure from the rest of the country as well as the majority of the world. I mean, as we've seen, most of the world uses the title doctor as a sign of respect and acknowledgement for the hard work and dedication it took to get this status, but not in Cali. Coming over to Chile, the title doctor is used much like it would be in the Nordic region, with academic titles such as doctor being rarely used, if ever, as a prefix or suffix to somebody's name. Instead, the only time you would ever really see someone referred to as a doctor would be in the hospital or wherever meeting them in a professional setting. Alright, we're going to end our time in South America and Brazil, where we'll see the most mundane use of the title, with Brazil bestowing the title of doctor on any PhD recipient as well as any medical practitioner after they've graduated from medical school. And this brings us to the final and most important country, in Malta. The Republic of Malta is integral to the history of doctors. No, I'm just kidding. I just love playing as, but they just have several uses of the title with lawyers, dentists, medical practitioners, and PhD recipients going by doctor. There's nothing really special going on there. And that's where I'm going to end the video, right? Over the majority of the globe and touched on almost everywhere on Earth where the title doctor is used. So, who can be called a doctor? Well, as you just saw, that differs around the world, but no matter where you live, the title doctor almost always applies to someone who has superior knowledge within a subject or field, as well as earning the respect and acknowledgement of their peers. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much for your time. If you liked the video and learned something, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and that way we'll be connected virtually for the rest of your life. As always, I've been Semantics. Have a great day today, everybody.